Welcome to Northern Michigan Update. I'm State Senator Jason Allen, and today with us we have Janet Lockwood from the Michigan Film Commission, and her office has been such an important part of bringing film production back to our state. As chairman of the Commerce Committee, I was active in this development, was involved with the governor's office, and we're seeing some great successes. And so we're going to get an update today on what's happening with the film office and see some of the successes of what's going on with business in Northern Michigan. Great to have you today, Janet.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
So tell me a little bit. Let's start out with, how did you get involved in film? And I knew you had some acting background.
Oh, I was simply, I've always told people in the right place at the right time. It was back in 1991, 92 when John Engler first took office. And the film office had been in place since 79. Bill Milliken put it in place. Right. And it was dark. In other words, there was nobody in the job right then. And the Republicans over in the Commerce called and said, we know you're in theater. Would you take a look at this job? Mm-hmm. And the very first day they borrowed me from Mishta, Disney called for a scout, and I thought, oh, this is what I'd like to do for the rest of my state service. Wow. Lucky, just lucky.
So you've been involved in sort of seeing the development of this
17
office.
years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about sort of how we got to where we're at and some of the ways that you've sort of seen how Michigan has become more competitive.
Well, Michigan right now, let's start right off saying it's the most competitive state in the union. We have the best incentive in the union. And as a result, we have probably the most projects going on in 08 and probably in 09 as well. In the past, we had no incentive. In the late 90s, the Canadians put an incentive in place, and all of the states watched business going over the border. Okay. And then in the 2002, Louisiana decided to take the bull by the horns, and they began a film commission. Following year, New Mexico began a commission, and then it became like Topsy. Sure. But we didn't have anything. I worked with I worked with Representative Bill Huizenga, just term limited, great shame, from the west side of the state, to move in a center forward. Okay. And we did get one in place in December of 06, legislature passed its first small one. It only brought in a couple of films. And so Governor Granholm, after meeting with a number of your legislators, decided she wanted to take a shot at the best incentive in the land. Mm-hmm. And with the help of the House and the Senate and the Legislative Service Bureau and lawyers and Treasury, we put together the best incentive plan in the land.
Now let's go through what we need, and it's been and thank you. Let's talk through sort of the reasons why I became so passionate about this was this whole issue of the jobs that are being provided. Absolutely. Now, it was interesting to me to take a look at what they called sort of below the waterline jobs. And so can you kind of go through what a GRIP is and on the set, the different types of employees that are needed and how that is working?
That's cute. You come from a water territory, so it's below the waterline. It's really below the line.
Okay.
Below the line and above the line. That's very cute. I like that. I fit right in. Yeah. Below the line are where all the crews are. That's the names you read, the titles you read in the credits, and you think, what is a best boy? What is a GRIP? Right. What is a gaffer? Right. Gaffer works with the electricity. GRIP works with, just think about the word GRIP. They move things. That's the simplest way to put it. There's best boys in all departments, and it simply means the second in command. Okay. There should be best girls now, too, but they haven't changed that yet, but there are a lot of women working in the industry. Still more men. Michigan could use more of everything below the line. That goes from the art departments all the way down to water trucks and weapons is the end of our production guide. We usually shoot union movies because we're a union state. Most states, even the non-union states, shoot union movies because there's a union called IATSE, the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees. They're the ones who train to be the grips and the gaffers and the costumers and the hair and the weapons and everything else that there is. Some non-union movies are made in Michigan. The small fellows, the union's perfectly compatible with them doing their thing. When the budget's low, they understand. And in some parts of the state, there are no union members. But overall, most of those categories fall into IATSE. We work with three main unions, we being the industry across the world: Screen Actors Guild, Teamsters, and IATSE. Those are the three that service this industry: television and film. And so we could use everything. Traverse City has a little pool of crew. They're one of the few areas outside of Detroit that do. Grand Rapids does, again, West Michigan. Surprisingly, Lansing has very few. Those that we have work mostly at Wharton. Mm-hmm. But Detroit has the bulk of it.
Okay, so these skill sets, now with the jobs being created, okay, so we always think about, the Gran Torino, we can talk a little bit about that, but those types of jobs that are being created, what are they getting paid on average?
My goodness. I think the minimum wage for beginners in most of those jobs is in the low 20s,
Okay.
and it goes up into the 40s.
Now, is that per hour or a year?
per hour.
Wow, so someplace $21, $22 an hour, which in
In some
northern
places
Michigan
much more. Yeah,
is a very,
it's
very
a very
generous
comfortable
way.
salary,
Okay.
no matter where you live, I think,
Okay.
at least in the Midwest.
Okay.
And the more highly skilled you are, the more experience you have as you move up into the hierarchy of the union jobs, the more you're paid, of course, just as anything else. But no, it's very worthwhile training. I'm glad you brought that up because we need training. That's one of the most important things we must develop is work training for these people, for our state.
Okay, so the Grips, the Best Boys, they have the union, which has probably been the best supplier. And I saw in a recent maybe Detroit News or a Detroit Free Press article that there are independent schools that are getting started, and then is it Wayne State and
Wayne State is interested, Oakland County.
Okay.
Traverse City Community College, I believe, is called, and that's why the state, in this office in particular, needs to put a director or a manager in place to help coordinate all these, because what we don't want to happen is different levels of training so that they can't all be hired by these incoming crews, incoming films.
Okay.
Because over 3,000 people were hired last year.
Wow, that's incredible. So that's a great job creator. So one of the things that we're working with in the office is then how to come up with a whole educational component, which seems to be, we talked about that,
Yes.
and sort of developing with sort of that base industry. And it sounds like, you know, from the premise that these generous tax credits are alluring a lot more people back home.
Yeah.
Now, I was talking this summer at our family's business with a variety of different people that came in, and there was a lot of excitement quietly within communities about people that were in California and in Chicago that are coming back to do a film production. Do you have any examples of that?
I don't have names, but that's absolutely true. We have had a number of people who've moved back to Michigan, or who've temporarily moved back to live with parents or other relatives and hope to buy a home and stay here. Even more importantly, we have a couple of producers who've shot 2 films here already, who are now looking at buying homes because they have 2 or 3 different films they'd like to make all over the state. I know that Ken Droz of our office probably has some names for you. I can't roll those off the end of my tongue.
Okay, so we've got the training component that we worked on and creating good jobs for the base industry. Now part of this was the aspect of the tax credits for core cities, which include places in our district like Rogers City and Sheboygan, Traverse City, Sault Ste. Marie are some of those examples. How has that helped attract businesses to our communities?
Well, the core cities, if you film in one of them, and there's 103 named by the legislature some time ago, you get an extra 2%.
Okay.
So the producers and the location managers look for their filming spots in the core cities if they can, because who doesn't want an extra 2%? Sure. It makes a difference when, for instance, in your area, they'll choose Traverse City over, no offense, Petoskey, which is not a core city, because they'll make 2% more.
Right.
And as they learn this, remember, this is a very new incentive, it's not even a year old. As the producers that come in from out of state learn this, I think they'll target the core cities more and more.
Right, because I know that there's already been a movement from Petoskey, which is in our district, to try to get something put together to help them be competitive. And so we've got to work through those. But it's been it seems like it's been able to expand the film production into many other communities that may not have had that opportunity.
The great thing, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The great thing about this incentive is before, and we did a number of films in the 90s, in the 80s, and even in the early 2000s, until the incentives elsewhere really took all the business away. For instance, in 2007 there were 2 movies, in 2008 there were 31 projects. Is that the filmmakers are seeing all of the state. They always concentrated in the past on the metropolitan Detroit area because they were familiar with that. That's where the crew was. And now the incentives are causing them to look everywhere, and that's wonderful.
Right. Well, I was talking with, we had a hearing and you were very kind in July to come up, and Mr. Moore, Michael Moore, testified and appreciated that very much. Now, the things he was talking about was the diversity of the geography. Have you seen that as, because we have winter, we have spring,